Welcome to Wrapping Things Up, the podcast where we tie up the loose ends on all things packaging, so you walk away with solutions. Coming up on today's episode.
Welcome to Wrapping Things Up, the podcast about packaging. I'm Alex Sielaff. I'm the Director of Marketing at Viking Masek, and today I have Jim Raynor of Convoy of Hope who's joining me, and he's going to tell us a little bit about Convoy of Hope's mission, their journey, and what they're doing in packaging.
It's great to be here. Thank you.
Sure. So, Jim, tell me a little bit about you, a little bit about Convoy, and how you came to Convoy and what you're doing there.
So, Jim Raynor, I'm a Senior Director of Programs, Project Management. So it's a nice title, essentially. I work on projects that align with the vision, the mission, put infrastructure, put processes in place, take that vision and hopefully make it a reality. So I've been with Convoy for about 3 years now.
Very cool. And what are the projects that are currently on your plate, Jim?
Currently on my plate, let's see. The two main projects is we are in the middle of, or at the tail end of, completing something called an ERP, which is an enterprise resource planning project. And so essentially you're taking multiple systems, computer systems, IT systems, and putting it into one IT system. And that's been an ongoing process. And we've got about 8 weeks left for it to be in conclusion. So I'm looking forward to that.
Congratulations.
Well, thank you. And then the other project is our food packaging and manufacturing facility that we are scheduled to open up in 26.
Well, two very big things. So I know a little bit about Convoy of Hope. My husband went to school in the Springfield area, has volunteered for Convoy, but I think a lot of our listeners would love to understand why an ERP would be so instrumental for Convoy, and then what this new project that you were just discussing means for the organization as well. So how did Convoy get started, and what do you do?
Yeah, so Convoy of Hope started back in 1994 by our CEO, founder, and president, Hal Donaldson. Unfortunate circumstances of life happened to Hal, and so he knows what it means to grow in poverty, to be without. But fortunately for him and his family and his siblings, he was able to experience grace and dignity through people who express caring and love to them. Hal actually was a ghostwriter. And as the story goes, he was on a work trip and ghostwriting with Mother Teresa. And so during the interview, Mother Teresa looked at Hal and said, "Young man, what are you doing for the poor?" And now these are Hal's words, and he said, "I figured I wouldn't want to lie to Mother Teresa," so he said, "I'm really not doing much of anything." And then she looked at him and said, "Well, something is better than nothing." So that struck a chord with Hal. And so he went back to his hotel. It really weighed on him. And then he got back to the States and he made a decision. He was going to go to some major metropolitan areas like New York, Philadelphia, Chicago, LA, and just spend time in the streets to visit those who are homeless, those who were prostitutes, police officers, just the community, and try to have a better understanding what was happening here in the States. And that changed his perspective and so of what is important in life. And so he made a conscious decision to empty out his bank account, went to the local grocery store, filled up the back of a pickup truck that he borrowed, and at this time it was in Northern California, in the Sacramento area, the rural areas of Sacramento, and he put the groceries in the back of a pickup truck and went to the migrant farm workers that were in that region and just started handing out food, and something inside of him just started to stir. And that was the origins of Convoy, right? And so then it has eventually grown over time, and then there was a pivot point for the organization where, because of his skills and reputation with writing, he was asked to come to Springfield to be the editor-in-chief for a magazine for a local for an international denomination, and he agreed to do that if he could bring the concept and the program of Convoy of Hope, which was at its very, very early stages, to Springfield, Missouri, and that's how it went from California to Springfield. And he shepherded the Convoy of Hope organization at very, very difficult times, financially and resources, while he was the editor-in-chief for the monthly magazine. Then, with a lot of due diligence, a lot of hard work, the organization of Convoy of Hope started to gain some traction. And there were a couple of circumstances that took place, and one of them was the tornado disaster that hit Joplin, Missouri. And that's only about 68 minutes away from us. Sure. And so Convoy was one of the first organizations from a humanitarian relief, went in and started helping our neighbors. And because that was such a devastating weather event, and the amount of work that not only Convoy but the community poured into that Joplin region really started momentum in the disaster services space. And that's where Convoy started to be recognized. Well, in the meantime, we established a children's feeding program internationally, and so Convoy is in about a little over 40 countries, and in each one of these countries we have programs there. And one of the first programs that we had was a children's feeding program, and what started as just caring for one community at a time has now grown to we are feeding 640,000 kids each school day.
Wow.
Throughout 40 countries, with a God goal of reaching 1 million kids each school day by 2030.
Which is in 4 years.
Which is in 4 years, right? And here's the reality. Poverty, famine, food insecurity doesn't take a day off. Mm-hmm. And so once you feed 5,000, it'll be 5,001, then 5,002. And it will always perpetually go, unfortunately. So that's where the passion and the heart and the commitment of people at Convoy of Hope is to meet people at that need at that greatest time, right? And so not only were we able to establish a feeding program at schools, a women's empowerment program began. And not only a women's empowerment program began, because now in certain cultures, the value of the mom or the auntie is limited to child rearing, and that's about it. But if they have a skill set, if they have a business mindset or skills that they can grow and develop, value to their community, to their family, it exponentially affects not only themselves and their immediate family, but their children and the community itself. And then on top of that, the program expanded to include agriculture. And so community asset development is something really important to Convoy, to where we want to be not needed.
Sure.
Eventually, we need to be not needed, to where they're self-sustaining, right? And so that's where agriculture comes in. And so if you can grow your own food, and then if we can help them, help the farmers improve their yields, either through proper pesticide control of what's available to them, not something that they have to go out and purchase, or soil enrichment enhancement. So that's part of the agricultural component. And so when you put all of those programs together, women's empowerment, young men empowerment, agriculture, feeding program, you can make significant difference. And so that's the growth that Convoy has seen because of those programs internationally, and now here in the States, the same principles, the same processes that we are doing internationally, we're doing here in the States as well. And through, both internationally and domestically, through our strong partners, which is primarily made up of churches, a church network, across the country and across the world, and then like-minded, like-hearted, like-spirited organizations that are in alignment with what we're trying to accomplish.
So you're not just serving their hunger, serving them food, but you're serving their heart, and it sounds like their livelihood.
Correct.
I know from my experiences traveling internationally, like you're saying, that women empowerment, by giving them trade skills, you're not only feeding their table, but you're providing their family and themselves protection.
That's correct. It's all encompassing, right? It's all intertwined. For instance, at the schools, not only do we have a community garden, a legitimate community garden that with local, culturally accepted garden produce, we have the children's feeding program that helps with the feeding program, right? That garden helps that. The moms, when their children are in school, they are getting educated. And then, for example, what good is feeding program if you don't have clean water? And so these schools or these community centers that we have clean water. We build and drill wells, and so now they have clean water, food to eat, skill development and acquisition, and agriculture. And so it's all intertwined. And so it is for self-sustaining opportunities that we're looking for.
Beautiful. That's an incredible organization. And personally, I think the heart of it and what you're doing for them, not just the immediate need, but then the sustaining way you're serving them is incredible, and it definitely sets you apart. I have a couple stats on Convoy of Hope. I just want to read out, and then I have questions as far as like incredible purpose, incredible mission, incredible result. How does it all operate, and how do you guys do this internationally? So I'll read out these stats, which are impressive. So as of 2025, Convoy of Hope has distributed over $3 billion in aid, served 300 million people globally, and is the 27th largest U.S. charity, which, I mean, if we sit with that for a moment, when you think about all the charities in the U.S., and I also read that your rating as a charity is also extremely robust.
Extremely robust. Transparency is critical and important for the organization.
So I guess my next question is, how does the organization operate? I know a little bit about your background and like food donations and things like that, but up until this point, how has Convoy brought the food from wherever you're getting it to the people in need, whether it's disaster relief or internationally for those school programs?
So to answer your question, I think it's really important to understand the why behind the why. And the core of our why is that we are a faith-based organization, and we're imperfect people trying to help people in their greatest times of need and desperation, and trying to be the eyes, ears, and feet of Jesus. All right. And so, with that being said, in order for us to be able to provide that, we need partners. We need partners in product. We need partners in donations for gift in kind and fiscal gift in kind. And together, it allows us to really meet those needs. Now, one of the things that is a strength of Convoy is the robust nature of our supply chain. And we have a network that allows us to get procured gift-in-kind product that we either bring into our distribution center or direct ship to partners and organizations in our churches throughout the country, throughout the world, that will benefit those who need certain things, whether it's food or water or disinfectant or in the case of wildfires that went uncontrolled in the western part of the United States, fire buckets, because there's nothing like trying to sift through rubble of ashes just to find a glimpse of what your life was, whether it's a fragment of a photo or a piece of jewelry or a baby toy. The fire buckets that we are able to provide with very generous donors enables us to do that and give people a sense of normalcy. The hurricanes that ripped through the southeastern portion of the United States, donors in our supply chain and volunteers enabled us to rapidly respond within hours of the hurricanes hitting, but then strategically going to different areas of the Southeast and providing care, providing resources. That we started at the time of the hurricane hitting, and we're still there. So we want to be one of the first ones in and one of the last ones out, because just because the news cycle ends doesn't mean that the need ends.
Right.
And so that's an ongoing process. So it's a combination. We can only stand on other people's shoulders that are willing to support us. And the people that work at Convoy of Hope, we understand the mission. We understand the culture. It's not about us. It's about the people that we are called to serve.
So regarding, you talked about like the fire buckets or some like in-kind donations. It sounds like that is what's being distributed, like what people are very familiar with, like canned goods or pouches or things like that being distributed. But I understand Convoy of Hope has some, new exciting development in your mission for how you're serving globally or nationally here, but globally as well.
Right. And part of that, to answer your question, and there's a reason why I'm here at Viking Masek these past 2 days, is that food insecurity is, yes, we people understand food insecurity to a point, but I think here in the States, people don't understand how prevalent it is in rural, urban, and even suburban America. And so we are really trying to meet the needs of the working poor. They're in that in-between space to where help, federal help is available and not necessarily available to the extent of what the working poor needs. So that population, and then internationally, as I mentioned earlier, abject hunger is prevalent throughout the world, and we that need is ongoing and ever present. But here, also in the States, it is a unspoken reality for a lot of folks, right? And so, with that being said, once again, Convoy needs to maintain relationships and partners and friendships of generous organizations and individuals and foundations to allow us to continue on with the mission and the ministry that is in front of us and that we've taken on. But a part of that is that because the need is there and the opportunity is presenting itself, and through the vision of our founder, Hal, and our board of directors, is that we believe that entering food packaging is the next logical step in our progression in meeting the needs of everyone around us. And so with that being said, our goal is to bring shelf-stable, dry, packageable food that we can distribute to food pantries, to churches, not only for weekly use, but also during disasters. And so we have the end user in mind, the end consumer in mind, which includes, and I think this is critical for your audience to know, is that what we are really trying to do, it's more than just providing food, it's providing dignity and honor and respect. And we want to bring really good quality packaging and food sources and food types to those who are hungry, to those who can't purchase whatever meals that they need to purchase for their kids and their families for that week. That's the space that we're trying to step in.
Wow. So I'm just thinking, if I'm in your shoes and you guys are experts in I can't even begin to describe all the different things from a global perspective, having operations globally and working with disaster relief, all of the different subsets of information you need to know. But then when you realized packaging bulk food was going to be the next step, what were just some of the high-level questions that you had to ask yourselves about how do we get into this and how do we engage with the packaging, not processing maybe yet, but packaging industry so that we can do this efficiently as automatically as possible as well.
Right. So the initial steps, you have a vision. Our leadership team had a vision, and to be quite frank, the vision's been there about 10 to 12 years, but the timing wasn't right, right? But now the timing is here. And so with many things that Convoy has done, once again, we're very relationship based on great relationships, and we stand on the shoulders of others. We asked current partners, current friends of Convoy. What are your thoughts? What should we do? What should we avoid? Whether it be the types of foods or the type of machinery, the type of space that we need to be looking at, from everything from wall color to types of light, right? And then obviously the types of machinery, right? And so you get a good foundational directional point from your friends and relationships, and then you start diving into, okay, what's possible? What should we do? And so one of the things that we needed to be very conscious of is not to drift from the mission. So this might sound really good, but what is the practicality? So for instance, we don't have access to freezers. Right?
Sure.
And even if we did have access to freezers at the scale that we needed, our distribution points might not have the freezer capability or the refrigeration capability. So that's why dried, shelf-stable foods was the point of start. And so you gather this information, and it starts giving you a compass of which direction that we go, and then over time you hone it in. And so, one of the messages that we heard from partners throughout the country was, if you can automate as much as possible. And, the COVID time was problematic, to say the least, but it taught. And it revealed a lot of things. It revealed opportunities for improvement. It revealed flaws in many industries, not just healthcare or whatever. But one of the lessons learned was automation. And so when I started exploring what options were out there, multiple organizations, multiple businesses have automation of food packaging. And then I was fortunate enough to find Viking Masek and then just started inquiring about what are the potentials, what are the opportunities. And the individuals that I originally were able to connect with helped shape the direction where we were going to go to where we are today. And so we landed on vertical form and fills with robotic packaging and case erecting and palletizing with conveyance. And we not only built for today, but we're building for the future. Because if we have a God goal of feeding 1 million kids internationally, and that's not even including domestic, we needed to be forward thinking and be able to build for tomorrow. And we found a company in Viking Masek that will help us scale and impact so many families that we could never dream. Because I was telling the team earlier is that when we first started out, we were planning on starting in a 3,600 square foot facility, and now we're opening a 50,000 square foot facility, not because of anything that any one individual did, right? Obviously, we're going to believe that it was a God thing, and we're just trying to be obedient and trying to be sensitive to that direction. But our partners, our donors, our board of directors have bought into what this vision is. Because if you look at our mission statement, it's a driving passion to feed the world, and this is a logical step. It's a step in faith. It's a massive step in faith, but that's not our job to know all the absolute details. It's our willingness to step in faith.
Yep, there's a plan.
There is a plan.
Well, I know on our side, when I first heard of this over a year ago, and Mike was communicating with someone on the team, and I was in the back seat of a car, and I heard Convoy. I was like, it's got to be. And so I know so many of us here are thrilled to be working with you, and it's cool to see the line beginning to come to shape out in our production area there, and I look forward to seeing it in your facility, which I believe is coming up in 2026, as you said.
That is correct.
And that will be located in Springfield.
In Springfield, Missouri, on our global headquarters campus.
Very cool.
Right. We really look forward to coming up and visiting with the team and seeing the lines being built and starting beginning stages of testing. Takes a dream and a vision, and now it's starting to really be put into reality. And the magnitude, the magnitude of a for-profit organization helping a nonprofit organization provide essential things at a scale that Convoy has been given the opportunity to, and for us to steward that in just and in transparency and with honor and dignity. We're very, very grateful for Vikings understanding and grabbing hold onto this as much as we are.
I'll say as a Viking Masek employee, something that makes it stand out to me is our tagline is simple in motion. My team was part of defining simple, and the S in simple stands for serving our customers, our colleagues, and our community. And our founders were very generous in our community and have instilled that within the people within these walls and how we interact with each other and those we do business with. So it's just it's cool to see how our paths have now come together, and we're walking towards doing a pretty incredible thing for the world. So Jim, I'm curious, if I'm a listener, how can I engage with Convoy of Hope or learn more?
I think the easiest thing is to go to our website, convoyofhope.org. Everything and anything you need to know, the stories that are told there. Obviously, we're on all the socials from Instagram to LinkedIn, YouTube. The stories are incredible. I cannot do it justice. The magnitude, the depth and width of what we have been afforded the opportunity to steward, just to make the world just a little bit better. It's awe-inspiring, and we just want to support our communities through our local church, the local churches. They are there. Convoy will come in and they leave, but those communities need an anchor, and those anchors are the local church, the Bride of Christ. And so we want to support them as much and as often as possible.
Great. So I can go to the website, I can work with my local church if there's a need, or I can point them in your direction.
That is correct.
And obviously social.
That's
so
correct.
Jim, thank you so much for joining. It has been a pleasure, and we're very excited to have you here. Thank you for listening to Wrapping Things Up, and we'll see you again next time.
Thanks for tuning into this episode of Wrapping Things Up. Make sure you follow and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Stay up to date by checking out Viking Masek on social media. Thanks for watching.